Well, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy C-Zar, and we are talking about 6 different stocks today. We're going to talk about PANW, PANW for Beanie, Coin slash Coney for Diesel Killer, in relation to BTC, PLTR, PMTS for Honcho, RGS for Dr. Mike, and AAPL for Inventious. That's the order. Let's get into it. Hit that like button, subscribe if you want to see more. Thank you all for being here. PANW, Palo Alto Networks, sitting at about 340 right now. And just so you know too, Beanie, if you can, whenever you request stocks, especially if it's something that I haven't heard of before, if you can just say it's a stock, like write PANW stock, or it's a stock, whatever you feel comfortable writing it, that way I don't write it down as a crypto, because I do have my list organized, and it just helps the flow of things, man. It's not a big deal. If you forget to do it, I'll figure it out one way or another, but it just helps the flow of things. You're requesting the stocks. I'm requesting that you just write stock or crypto next to your request. That's it. If not, again, it's not a big deal. I'm not going to forbid you from doing requests or take away your right to do requests. I'll still do your requests. It's just, it helps the flow of things. It's a preference of mine. That's all. So relative high to low. Above your 618. I would call this the second reaction or interaction with this area. Kind of a third, to be completely fair, but it's technically a second. I don't know. Might have to look at this a little bit further out. I want to zoom out first. Let's zoom out, and then we'll come back to that. Yeah, buddy. You look good. Yeah, you look really good, actually. Wow. Yep. You want to go higher. All right, so that's good to know. Okay, so right now, I would say that the long game, the intermediate game, even potentially the short game, right? Like you might be on a trajectory up here where by August, if not the end of July, you could see prices above 420, maybe even up to 482. You're at 340 now, 339. So the real test, the real area to break would be 365. If you can close above this 886 at 365, then and close above it. Don't just move above it, right? Like you've got wicks here that were above where you closed today. Close above 365, and then this area is on. It's on. I mean, it might be on now, right? Like if this move, it's like this. You're just moving up, right? It's on right now, essentially, but. And I say August, that's like as early. I'm assuming you pick up momentum as you break out of this. That's why I'm assuming that, right? Kind of increasing the curve. But if it were to be kind of a parallel channel like this, it could be September, October. It might take more time. Time is not the easiest thing to guess, but I would assume either way your next target area is 365. Let's see how you interact with that. Break above it. Just even if you don't, even if you reject, that's not the end of the world. Right, low, a higher high and then a higher low. That's not a bad thing. It's very normal. But when you do break above 365, that's when it's time to get excited for these areas. They are on the table right now, but they're not the major area of focus. So I hope that makes sense. That's PANW. Coinbase and its relation to, Diesel Killer. I'm just going to do Coin. I'm actually not going to do Coney, because every time I've done these, what do they call them? Is it Yield Max? Yield Max, yeah. Every time I've done those, it's just like the underlying stock, the underlying asset, it's the same thing. So I'm just going to do this. And in relation to Bitcoin, we will throw on a BTC. Why does it do that? Why does it do that? It did that last time too. Correlation, BTC. I don't know why. There we go. So yes, Coinbase is more related or more correlated to Bitcoin than it is not, but it has its phases, right? And it looks like it's in a phase of correlation. So if Bitcoin were to move down in the coming days or coming weeks, we might see Coinbase move down as well. Where if Bitcoin were to move up, Coinbase might move up as well. That's something worth mentioning. The daily RSI on Coin does look like it wants to go lower, I'm not going to lie. And Bitcoin also looks like it wants to go lower, so that makes sense to me. If we look at this for what it is, from a relative low to a relative high, you did break below your 618 on the first attempt, but you got back above it, so that kind of invalidates this move to the downside. I do like that. Wrestled with it nonetheless back at your 0.5 area. It would make sense to go down, so maybe you do see prices down around like $208 to $200 itself, something like that. I do think you move down lower, and that kind of makes sense because that corresponds with Bitcoin. I think you're correlated to Bitcoin right now. If Bitcoin moves down, this is going to move down. So that's kind of my thoughts on that. So yes, lower, $208. You're at 222 now, so a little bit lower, and then that's it. I wonder if you get any significant extensions here. 1272, 1414. You could go as low as, like, you could even break 200 and you're still fine, but I don't expect that you break this low. I do expect that you break this low, but you don't have to. There's a possibility that you might not do that as well. I'm saying 208, maybe you only go to 210 or 215, you know, but lower nonetheless is what I expect. PLTR, and then higher, right? Then higher. We're gonna take off the Bitcoin correlation. Palantir Technologies, or Palantir. I'm sorry, Palantir. I always want to say Plantier. I don't know if I say that out loud ever, but in my head I always read it like Plantier, not Palantir. Palantir sounds so much better. Broke above your 618. Found support on it. That's a good look. I would expect that your next target area is your 786 to 886. I do expect that you find turbulence there. You tend to find turbulence when you have multiple interactions with the 618 prior to breaking it. But finding support on the 618, being constructive like this does spell good things. Hopefully in the future you will see these extensions. $78 to $157 is the kind of end game target goal. But right now the more immediate kind of things to focus on would be $29 to $35.71, and with a really heavy emphasis on this area. If you can break above that, then it's a green light for these areas. Until then, it's an idea. It's on the table. It should be mentioned, but don't get too excited, right? We still have a little bit of work to do. You're at $25.33. You need to basically move up $11 from here, and then you can get excited. You might only move up $4 from here, and then pull back, and then move up, and then pull back, and then move up. You know what I mean? So like, these areas are something to be excited for. You're at $25 now. $78 to 157 is exciting, but it's June, right? We're at the end of June right now, or I guess, yeah, we're at the end of June right now. This could be all the way in October, right? And you can get excited for it. You know, October isn't that far away, but it is several months away, right? You get excited for it now. These prices might not happen until, I mean, maybe not even October. Maybe it happens sometime in 2026, just based off of this look alone. Who knows how it's going to look? I'm drawing it like this kind of in succession of this like trend that you've got going on now, right? But that doesn't mean it has to look like that. You don't have to maintain that trend. Again, just spitballing ideas. The main thing that I would look for is a break above $35.71, $36, let's call it. And if you can do that, well, good. Short amount of time, you'll be up at these prices. Until then, 29 to 36 bucks, that's the target area. So moving up, that's my genuine opinion. I think you're moving up. Everything looks good. PMTS. Yes, doing the same thing that it's been doing, that I kind of expected it to do, which is just be boring and move sideways and consolidate. So good. It is at its 50. The daily RSI does look postured down. You're getting these nice lower highs and lower lows, but you're just moving sideways. It's a really good look, man. Generally with the way the RSI looks like this, I would expect that you go down. You continue to work your way down, right? Find your next low here. Find your next low, find your next high, find your next low, find your next high, and just kind of maintain this shape all the way down to the oversold zone. But the price is just so strong. You might find support here at the 50 and move up, because you might be in this greater kind of thing that's like holding support like this. You know, you might be in this greater kind of channel upwards. Maybe you're at the bottom of it. You know, I don't know. And in which case, it might be time for PMTS to start kicking up the gears again. I feel like maybe not my last video, but my like second or third to last video, whenever I called for us to consolidate, it was either this day or maybe it was the day before or after, somewhere around here. So here we are about a month later. I think that's fine. I think we've consolidated enough. If you look at this for what it is, we're at like the top areas of this whole like range, and we're crowding it, right? We're crowding it. I think that we are about to break to the upside. From a high to a low, crowding the 618 like that. if you don't move down to $24, and you could move down to 24, even down to $21 ish. That is something to mention, right? I think I was calling for us to move down somewhere around there, but holding this is actually a better look, right? Time went on, and the look that we're getting right now, I wouldn't say that we're going to move down to $21 anymore, down to this 382. That's off the table in my opinion. It can happen, but I'm not expecting it. A move down to $24.11, that could happen. I could see that happening still. Or we could move, and if we do move down here, well, the next move up would be exactly what I'm about to say, which is I think we're about to break out to our 786 to 886 area, which would be about 34, 35 bucks to about 40 bucks itself. So that's kind of our next target area. We could find resistance there, move back to this area, and then move up, move down to the 6.9, move up, whatever. We could even move a little lower and then move up, higher lows nonetheless, right? But that's kind of the next target area in mind, is $34 to $40, and you're at 27, 25 now. And that'll probably happen in a short amount of time. So we'll see how it goes. We might start the breakout this week, or I would say any week now. It could be a month from now. You know, it's relatively a short amount of time, but don't hold your breath, because it might not happen tomorrow. It might happen again a little bit later than that, but relatively short amount of time. This 886 is an important area to watch. Previous areas of resistance here, the 886 of this relative range. When you break that, we can talk about $65 to $101, and see how that kind of operates. If not, if you reject there and you get back below your 618, that wouldn't actually be a good look. So but yeah, looking like you're looking frisky. Definitely looking frisky on PMTS. RGS for Dr. Mike and the boys. Dr. Mike, I know you got the crew hounded me for these for this RGS request. $23 is what it's at now, and I get it, man. My first video on this thing, I believe it was this day, right? Obviously not at the lows, like after the day already closed, that I made the video. Maybe it was the day after, I forget, but I was calling for basically boring price action. And yes, this day here we moved up 20.85%. That's nice. Anybody and everybody would love to make 20% of their return in a day, of course, who wouldn't? But we haven't gone anywhere, right? We haven't gone anywhere. We've got decreasing volume. We are very overbought, man. We hit like a 99, 90, 100. The analysis remains the same, right? I don't think we're going to grow substantially from here. I'm surprised that you even grew that. I mean, maybe not surprised, but like I wasn't really expecting that. But it's not. I would be surprised if you grew too much further, right? Like you could still see a slightly higher high than this. Maybe you could even move all the way up to 30 bucks. That'd be decent gains in a very short amount of time. But I don't think you're going to move up too much higher from here, man. If we look at this thing for what it is, you are right now at this high, kind of at the previous areas of resistance back here. It would make sense that you pull back a little bit, perhaps to the areas of support, or even down to this area here at the closing low, which you found resistance on too. So you're at $23, 1960 to 1560 are target areas to the downside. Yeah, I mean that's my thoughts. I personally don't think, and this is what I said. It was either this day or this day. I forget. I don't think you're going to see a day like this again, if not ever, for a very long time, right? It's not going to happen. This thing is not. It's not just on a one-stop rocket ship to the heavens. I wish it was, but that's not my assumption of what's going to happen. You're very overbought on your RSI. I think you're going to pull back. That's what makes the most sense to me. I don't think that you're going to fill this gap. I think maybe you could enter it a little bit, maybe at the most, but I don't think that you're going to fill this gap, right? I think that you're going to stay relatively like in this kind of range that you're in for a while, more than a month. That's my best guess, personally. I can be wrong. I've been wrong before. I will be wrong again, but that's my best guess. If we look at this from a relative high to a relative low, you're at that 1272, 1414 area. Technically, with this kind of look, I would expect that you pull back to your 100 and 886 area. But if we look at the daily, you know, that makes sense. That actually does make sense. That makes a lot of sense. For some reason, I thought that was lower. But yeah, 13 to 1525, that makes sense to me. That's where I think we're going to go. I would think that you're going to go to $15 to $13 first before pursuing prices to $35 or higher. And I mean, you could, technically speaking, you could work your way all the way up to 35 bucks. This would be kind of the ceiling that I would give for this thing. If I were to be wrong, that'd be the ceiling. And then still these targets would be on the table. But you could also move up to your 1618, and then maybe you hold support on the 1272, the current areas that you're at. So even if I am wrong, what I'm trying to get at is, even if I am wrong and you don't move down here first, you move up first and then you move down, you'll probably move back down to these exact price areas. You'll get a second chance to buy, and then it can move up. Or what I'm saying is going to happen now will happen inevitably. It's a very common thing to move up to your 1272 area afterwards to pull back to your 100 and 886 area. Okay. It's also specifically with the 1618, you get a little bit of a different scenario where if you interact with this, it's fairly common to hold this area as support as well. So not the 1414 specifically, it's actually more the 1272, but somewhere in this zone. So, but again, even if I'm wrong, right, and assuming that we go down first, we would very likely still get a second chance. This thing can't just move up forever, and I don't think it will. I really don't think that it's going to move up to the 1618 because the volume's just dead. It's died off. It had its day. The event, the whatever caused this to pump, it's over. It's past, and now you've got all the FOMO buyers. It's probably going to retrace, and then it'll move up. Then it'll probably continue to move up. I do very much believe you will see higher prices, but for the time being, I'm not expecting anything exciting. The majority of this move has been had. If there's any gains to be made from here on out, it's not going to be nearly what we've seen so far, right? Like you're not going to get this same week next week or the week after, right? Like this won't happen again, right? How do I know that? I mean, I don't know that. Nobody knows that. But look at this thing's existence, right? Show me another candle that's even, you know what I mean? Like even close to that size. So, anyways, that's RGS. Probably going to be boring is my best guess. All that to say, AAPL, not APL, AAPL, Apple at $210, holding resistance maybe. You were saying look at it compared to Bitcoin. Inventious, what did you say, man? What did you say? Look at the daily on Apple. And what BTC is doing right now, I think they could be very similar. Okay. Okay. So you're talking about this, right? Like coming down here to find support, maybe even a slightly lower low, right? Because Bitcoin itself, I'm calling for a move down to around 58K and holding support there. 58K being right there, essentially, which is basically a double bottom, but slightly lower. Oh, so slightly lower. My goodness, my nose itches so much right now. AAPL. I don't think they look similar, but I see what you mean by they could be doing the same thing. The thing is, Bitcoin's RSI here, if you look at it, it's oversold, right? It's at the very low parts. If it moves down from here, you're getting that bullish divergence. Apple, however, you're not going to have that bullish divergence, and you're getting a rejection off your overbought zone. I don't know if I like that as much. I see where you're going for, Inventious, but I don't know if I would make that same connection personally. It could happen. It really could happen, honestly, but I would actually think you're moving back down to around 200, 195, probably closer to 195. That's my genuine thoughts. I think you are going to move down there, which makes sense, right? You just broke out, back test areas that you broke out from, tested as support. You've done this before where you've broken out and you actually broke back into the range, right? And you still went higher. So it's not detrimental if you go below this area, but it is very common to back test areas that you break out for support, and then pair that with the fact that this move was very strong from a low to a high point. You moved up a substantial amount in a very short amount of time. Pulling back to your 382 is a very common maneuver to make. It's almost like an expectation with strong moves, right? You pull back to this area and then boom, higher you go. So that's my call for Apple in the weeks to come. Probably moving down just below $200, if not lower. If you go below this line, you're still fine. What's a higher low? Why is that a problem? You know what I mean? It's okay, but I personally don't see it the same as Bitcoin. It might act the same, but different readings, different areas, you know. Yeah, that's my best response. So hit that like button, you guys. Subscribe if you want to see more. That's all that I have. Take care of yourselves. Take care of yourselves. Bye bye.